My mouth harp may be rusty, my voice may be rusty, but my memory is pretty good about this stuff. It was August of 1966. My future first wife and I were hiding out in a little place called a $3 motel in San Antonio, Texas. $3, by the way, is not quite as bad a motel as it sounded like. Back then, $3 could get you a nice cheap room with a clean bed in a building that was salvaged from an army post after World War II, or being San Antonio, an Air Force base. At any rate, the reason we're there is we were on the lam. On the lam, for younger audience members, is on the run, fugitive, cops out after your ass. And the reason all this was happening was Mary's mother in Illinois. She was well-to-do. She was unhappy. She was embittered. She was racist. And the last thing she had in mind to dominate her daughter's life was for her to take up with a poor radical truck driver who was doing civil rights work. An N-word lover, you might say. At any rate, we're hiding out in this place and we're thinking, how the hell are we going to get out of here? I mean, they're going to watch they're watching the train station, they're watching the bus stations, and this woman had us, had cops out looking for us everywhere. So we thought, well, we're stuck here until we think of something. And then I remembered, I had been a crop picker, a farm worker. So I was somewhat mixed up with the farm workers movement. And I'd heard that on the 4th of July, a group of Mexicans and Mexican-American farm workers and a couple of organizers and a couple of politicians had left Rio Grande City or McAllen, one of those cities way south in Texas, on the 4th of July. And they were marching they were timing their march in such a way as to arrive at the state capitol in Austin on Labor Day. And we found out that they were taking a break in San Antonio. So Mary and I looked at each other and we got this bright idea, and I went and found these people, and both of us did. And we found them and we jumped through a couple of hoops about whether we were engaged to be married or not, and about politics and whether we were communists or pink or red, as this one politician liked to put it. Anyway, they accepted us. So bright and early the next morning or the morning after, I forget which, we showed up at the Alamo, and the march got put together, and Mary and I escaped San Antonio by walking out of town. Several interesting things happened on this trip, not all of which will fit in this story. One of which was the remarkable lack of violence that was perpetrated against us. The occasional beer bottle, beer can, people hollering out car windows, that kind of stuff, but nothing significant, which struck me as pretty amazing. And another thing was that there was a guy named Willie. I forgot his last name. He was a cemetery worker, a grave digger. And he was from San Antonio, and he joined the march with his accordion or concertina or whatever. And I had my mouth harps. So they'd put us up in these parish halls and places like that in the evening. And Willie and I would entertain the folks with stuff like this. That's called De Colores. Look it up. Anyway, so another interesting thing was, and this is the heart of my story, is that following our march, on occasion, was a bright red 42 Chevy, short, wide bed, half-ton pickup truck. It had the two halves of a windshield that cranked out, 3 or 4 speeds in the floor, I forget how many, I drove it for a while. And 42 wasn't quite that old a model back then, but for those of you who can picture an old truck as being gorgeous, this old truck was gorgeous. What was even more gorgeous was that the back of this truck was full of ice and watermelons that were provided to us by the owner and driver of this truck. Now, the really interesting thing is that the owner driver of this truck was a white redneck farmer from somewhere in that area. He had the red peeling skin. He had the white hair. He had the watery blue eyes. Red, white, and blue, ladies and gentlemen, just like what I would now call out of central casting. And we were talking, and one time I was talking to him, I forgot his name. I said, you know, my fiance and I, well, we kind of stick out in this crowd, but you, sir, you are the very picture of the enemy. So how did you become such a godsend to us? And he said, this is what happened, kid. They came out to my farm one day, and they said, we're organizing farm workers, and we might be holding a strike, and we're doing all this. And I said, what is it you want? And they said $1.25 an hour minimum wage for every farm worker in Texas. And I said, you ain't going to get it out of me. Oh yeah, how come? I said, because I can't afford it. I got some good workers here. I would love to pay them that kind of money as a minimum, but I can't afford it. And they said, how come you can't afford it? So I had to tell them about the packing sheds and about the costs of fuel and everything, and about the big people that are squeezing us, you know, me and us other small farmers, you know, and that we're so squeezed ourselves that we can't quite afford to pay that kind of money. And the organizer looked at me and he said, that makes you one of us, don't it? Son of a bitch. They left, and I thought about it, and I thought some more, and I thought, my God, they're right. The same rich bastards at the top are squeezing my kind and their kind. Huh. And that, kid, that's why I'm here. Thank you.